Yes. Okay, we are live this morning, I believe.
I just want to shower.
Okay.
For cars out there.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's the Senate Transportation Committee. It's Tuesday morning and we're ready to go. We're going to take up an issue on noise that we've Senator White has brought a minute or so to us. Who would like to lead off this morning? Who would like to start with this?
Thank you.
All right, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for taking the time to consider this additional amendment. So you had done an overview of the previous amendment that I had introduced around, or was offering around S99.
Yep.
So this is a different amendment than the one you had reviewed before.
Okay.
And as you'll see, it changes section 47. And what it does is it creates a study committee. And that study is meant to look at, and I'll quote, to examine current enforcement practices around excess motor vehicle noise.
Which one do we have? Do we have it, the newest or?
It was sent to you over email. It is, yes, 3.1.
3.1, okay. This.
And I have a copy myself.
Okay, why don't you just go through it and.
Sure.
So we can take it piece by piece.
Great.
Yep.
So it's a 4-page bill, and when you look at the top, you see the section under section 47. It's the creation of the study committee. Section A just describes the creation, and then it talks about the 2 different standards that you also have seen in other parts of your bill. I believe that this is similar language to the motorcycle decibel levels. So section 1 and 2 under subsection A is to create to look at the standard of 83 decibels at 50 feet for vehicles manufactured at the January 1st, 1979 to January 1st, 1988, and then 80 decibel standard for the same with vehicles manufactured on or after January 1st, 1988. The membership of the committee, I'll say I'm open, I'm flexible on the membership of the committee if there are things that you would like to change here. The current membership as it stands in the amendment is to have a member of House of Representatives, 1 from the Senate. Going to page 2, line 1, it's a member of law enforcement designated by the Commissioner of Public Safety, then a member of to represent the state inspection stations, and that could be an owner operator. That could also be a state employee, ideally someone from the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles would appoint. Then we have a designee from the Board of Directors from the VLCT. And then we also have going into the powers and duties of the committee. So that's the membership. And I'll just say again, I'm flexible on the membership, for example, of the committee. If we didn't want to have, let's say, elected folks as members of the study committee, I would be very open to that conversation.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Anything that involves paying legislators on that adds a whole new dimension. So I would find that as a good change and for something so technical, really. So I'm sorry I'm late, but
We got other things going on.
no, I have nothing going on. Sorry, I'm late.
And did you have a concern about just the appropriation, or was just the legislators? Because the others, I don't think a police officer, law enforcement.
Oh, no.
VLCT would
No, I was talking more from a legislative perspective. It seems to me the work would then help inform whatever action the legislature, and it's such a technical area, and evaluating what method should you do it through, inspection, should you law enforcement, what are the advantages? To me, it's really asking for a structured analysis of the options.
Yes.
And if I understood it correctly, I wasn't even sure we should be precise in the decibels, because isn't the standard something that, you know, if it's the equivalent of a dial tone, well, is that the right standard? But shouldn't the professionals look at what's out there and recommend what a standard would be?
Yeah.
I was just one of my thoughts when I looked.
Here's some of the standards. I mean, you have, level at which sustained exposure may result in hearing loss. One's a dial tone. City traffic, a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, that's good. I won't have to vacuum because it's bad for my hearing.
Normal conversation.
No.
Normal conversation could cause hearing loss. Business office, a refrigerator can cause hearing
Oh my
loss.
gosh.
A whisper can cause hearing loss.
Well, I just don't know if that's the right standard and be so prescriptive. You know, if it's the federal standard, we could make reference that they, you
Yeah.
know, what they consider in
Yeah,
establishing or recommending a standard.
sure. And so the reason that we chose that in the way that the amendment is drafted is based on language you have in S99 already. So my goal, just to take a step back, is I've heard loud and clear from constituents that noise pollution is having an impact on their quality of life and their health. And when we talk
If
about
you're talking about noise along the interstate, when we talked the other day, these people live along the interstate and they're concerned about the interstate. That's what you had relayed to us the other day. So the folks that you have that live along the interstate are concerned about noise. And then I got some emails from your constituents that were talking about jake brakes. Does this bill address jake brakes?
no, I wouldn't say that this bill addresses.
Because that's what your constituents are reaching out for, is they're talking about jake brakes.
But they can do that in neighborhoods already.
Right, they can. I think they can do all of this in neighborhoods already if her constituents have the concern about it, because it seems to be just in that area, the constituents in her area that are concerned about it, and I don't know why
Well,
we
then,
haven't gone to the town level first. I mean, it's the same problem that we had with Senator Bray's bill last time. He had one car, one complaint, where he wanted the state to come in and write an ordinance and write a law to change these mufflers over one vehicle, one concern. And
well, I think though we've heard enough from villages, and I've experienced it. If you wanted to do something about it, and they are, some of them are just about tear your ears out. If you really want to do, what's the right mechanism? And it could be through inspection, so that you don't, that kind of modification is just not permissible. But what the cost is, and we don't know. So that's, I thought, was
Yes.
the purpose of the study, is to really get into that evaluation and make a recommendation back, which could be, you know, either one option over the other. I think our law enforcement resources are kind of stretched, but if you do it through inspection, then the question is, and how many would have, et cetera. So my concern would be looking at what is a standard as part of the study, and then looking at the advantages of what is the price tag, and ultimately make a decision. But until you get that information, then that it's hard to act in what we think is in an informed way.
We'll go through it.
Sure, would you like me to continue?
Continue on.
All right, so I've just,
So we're now on page 2, and I went through the membership of the study committee, and now we're on line 8, which is the powers and duties section. So what we've asked them to do is to look at how the cost question that Senator Ingalls had brought up to me, as you heard today, and also in the hallway. Also looking at the cost to train law enforcement if we were to have noise testing. Then we talk about approaches to minimize excess motor vehicle noise that has been done in other states, for example, as I think many of you know, many other states have gone further than our state has on noise pollution reductions. And then we've asked for, when you get to the bottom of page 2 and then you go into page 3, we want technical and legal advice from the Department of Motor Vehicles. And further on, we go, oh, I see, okay. And then finally, we enter into how.
You get whacked with the door, Anthea, could be.
I think I'm good.
Well, this is good because, you know, she wrote this, so she can elbow me. So then we talk about the meetings, and we asked for them to begin meeting on or before September 2023. And, oh, I apologize, I skipped the report section. So section E at the top of page 3, you'll notice it says January 1st, 2025. The reason I chose 2025 was because I had a conversation with Scott Davidson, and he recommended that I not have the study come out before the completion of the modernization work that's being done by DMV. So that was in conversation with them. Obviously, I would prefer sooner rather than later, but I respect the capacity that he explained to me that DMV has at this point. Then meetings wise, we do have the meetings starting in 2023, and the important piece here is that we asked them to have no more than 6 meetings. That's what felt relevant for me to share with you.
If Alice Nitka would, she would be 5.
It would be 5?
I would say 4.
You'd say 4? Okay. So that's the relevant parts to the bill in my view. I'm happy to continue to go line by line, or I can tell you a little bit about the reasoning behind the amendment. Which, to quote the EPA, noise pollution is a growing danger to the health and welfare of our nation's population. And I reached out to the research manager at AOT to see if we had done any research on this. And she informed me that because of the federal highway aid funds that they had not taken this on. So it wasn't an AOT in the purview of my understanding of AOT, but rather a DMV piece. So that's why I've requested it to be an amendment for the DMV miscellaneous bill rather than the transportation budget bill.
I have a question for you. Are you amenable to amending your amendment to reflect some of the discussion we've had here?
I would be more than amenable. My hope with this bill is to get the ball rolling on the conversation of noise pollution that, I mean, I've heard from representatives in the House who have introduced for many years bills, like Representative Sarita Austin from Colchester, who has a base of constituents who are very concerned with noise pollution. And I think that it's a way that we can respond to a quality of life issue that's really a bread and butter one for.
I have a question. The jet skis, they're terrible. Jet skis, noise-wise, jet skis, do they come with, I realize that isn't your.
Waterways, yeah, I don't know.
But what, I'm just wondering, and when we're talking, because we're doing it for motorcycles.
Yeah.
We do it for snow.
We do snowmobiles. I'm just wondering about jet skis. On the waterways, you know, on ponds, the jet skis.
Oh, I used to work on the boats for the state police. I did it out of Colchester Guards, actually, at Jake's Marina. And we didn't get a lot of complaints on that. A majority of the complaints that we handled were wake and that type of thing. Jet skis, we have a house on the lake in Colchester.
You don't see many others very often.
Well, I don't need to expand, but I raised the question about.
Yeah,
I've
but there
heard that
is a separate
on the-
section for that, in Title 23, and I think that is covered with decibels.
It is.
But the state police doesn't have decibel meters, and there's no enforcement piece for it, but it's on the books.
And it's a distance from shore.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, because I like the wake boats.
Yes, question.
Okay, yes.
So if we take out the legislators, which seems that makes sense, and we leave just the state employees, the member of law enforcement, state inspection, board of directors from League of Cities and Towns. Well, League of Cities and Towns not an employee, but my question is does it have to be a formal committee where they have to do open meeting law and post all the laws, or could this just be asking these 3 to develop a report? I feel like that was done with Secretary of Education a few times. Do you have a strong opinion that it must be a committee with formal meeting structures, or to ask for a report with these constituencies consulted through the development of that report?
I'm open to anything that moves forward the conversation around reducing noise pollution in our state. And if the committee is more amenable to that, then I would be happy to. Just so you know, I have an amendment that's on the calendar for today that's not this one. I won't be offering that amendment if we have a conversation that makes me feel comfortable with work that's moving ahead.
Scott, you have any comments at this point? Any, I know you're pretty good at this.
I had a lot of conversation with my counterpart in Maine, because I think you brought up Maine. Decibels aren't in the inspection manual at all. None of the inspection mechanics have decibel meters.
In Maine, you're talking about now.
Yeah, statute itself refers to decibel meters as an exception. So if a law enforcement officer was to write for a loud muffler, the defense may be, if they went to a certified inspection station, they could have it tested, and if it's under 95 decibel meters, that could be used as a defense. Now, may or could is the terminology here. So the state does not regulate any of those stations, and there's 10 in the state of Maine that have soundproofing stations. In order to do it in accordance, it's like law enforcement, they can't do a decibel meter at roadside because of ambient traffic, other cars, other noise. You just couldn't do it the standard. You couldn't stand 50 feet if there's an embankment to the right or traffic to the left. It's not practical at roadside. So that's the same thing with the certified inspection station. It would have to be in a garage where there's no other drills being used, there's no other equipment being used. That's to be a soundproofing station. However, the state of Maine does not regulate any of those soundproofing stations. They don't provide guidance. They don't provide regulation. They don't certify. They don't train. They don't oversee. And in fact, the commander of that unit said they don't even maintain a list if somebody called them of who doesn't.
So they don't really have a muffler ordinance as far as.
It's on the books, and he explained, to be used as a defense, but it's entirely up to the judge and whether or not he wants to accept or she wants to accept the defense. So if they did go to one of these soundproofing stations, it would be up to the judge.
So isn't this the kind of information that this work group could put together? It seems to me that that kind of, even if you asked them, could you just summarize? You could look at it, and then maybe we determine what is feasible. Sometimes things are turned out to be more workable, or another state may have figured something out. But maybe in to pick up on Senator Chitten's comment, it just seems like people who are dealing with motor vehicle issues, if we charged you or whomever to bring it together to collect the information about what the laws are in other states, how they are enforced, enforcement mechanisms, and that would be part of the study, to come back and say it's a terrible problem, but in order to solve it would, as someone has said around here, the squeeze might not be worth the juice.
This does not mandate anything.
No. We do call out in section, so on page 2 in section 4, we asked to look at, to compare other states. So I expressly would like, that is one piece I'd like us to consider. And SEMA keeps a database of all the different exhaust and noise related laws in the state.
In other states.
Yes, so I expressly would like to see that covered. And Maine is a good example. I think we've used it because they're close and they're rural and we like to look to them. But there are many other states that have slightly different laws and they enforce them differently. Maryland is a law that I looked at as well. But SEMA keeps a great directory, in my view, of all the different laws on the books. And they actually rank them. We're gray in their view because we don't really have something that fits with other state standards.
But you're correct. This would be, the question is, do we need to create this very official study committee, or could we just give the mandate to assemble work group in collaboration with the named parties and examine, the issues, setting the standard, looking at what other states do, enforcement mechanism, and options in terms of inspection versus law enforcement. And then it comes back, so.
Yes.
I was going to say, I'm just supportive of this. This is something in my constituents have brought up before. And I guess I don't care whether it's a report by DMV that has to meet to go through that. I don't have a preference on that, but I think it's worth doing. There are questions about how we do this. I think there are vehicles that I would like to
Take off the road.
or just that, like, at least that there's an argument to be made that they're not legal.
Yeah.
And that's difficult sometimes now. And so I'd like to see because we keep having this conversation. So I think a study report, even though I don't want to do studies just to do studies,
Yes.
but I think there would be some value in a report that says, okay, this is what other states are doing. Here's where this federal decibel thing comes from. Why is that out there? Just things like that, hopefully would close the loop. So we don't just have this conversation every year that somebody puts in a noise vehicle.
But aren't there already standards as far as when people have their exhaust work done? It's a pass or fail. Either they got a legal exhaust or they don't, correct? And when they go to an inspection station.
Well, see, that's the thing with inspections. You could drive in with the manufacturer inspected muffler, get your sticker, and then swap it out. That's really the
Or maybe
reality.
an aftermarket,
Yeah,
that's especially
generally.
loud, but still.
See, that's all part of what I would view as part of that structured analysis. And that is, well, you could require, but, could be removed. So that's all, there's so much information that's out there and we're getting it. And so I'm not sure in the end, we may say, boy, we can put it on the books and maybe it's a tool that you could say, hey, bud, there's a law that governs noise and perhaps you should.
That's exactly what the Maine Commander told me. They put working groups together since 2011. They've kicked this around. They talked about it. They've done all this.
Yeah.
They came up with a law. They put it on the books. It's not being enforced. The decibel meter is a great example of 95 decibel meters, but they don't oversee the pressure stations. There's no standard. There's no regulation. Is it being used as a defense? Is it even being written by law enforcement?
But sometimes law enforcement could just give advisory. The same is true. You need to get your muffler or you forgot to whatever. And people
Generally,
do
if I was to
comply.
stop a car with a defective muffler, I'd give them a written warning. And for me, a defective muffler, for me to be able to detect a defective muffler without crawling under it, without looking at it, it's hanging, it's got a hole, it's obvious. And most likely somebody that has a muffler like that is probably low income, probably not driving a brand new car. I'm going to give them a written warning, give them some time to get it fixed.
And that's not our
generally the case.
Those aren't our concern,
No.
broken mufflers, it's
Yeah.
not purposeful.
But I'm just saying, sometimes you say to somebody, we're getting complaints and there is a law, maybe you should.
Right. And maybe you pull them over for speeding, you're like, well, what I read about the main law is that like the officer can say, I think it's loud, and write the ticket, but then the person can either just pay it, say, okay, well, I got a ticket, or challenge it. And if they challenge it, there's, probably many ways they can challenge it, but I'm just saying it's worth studying. I don't think it's an onerous report that DMV would have to be. You've already done a lot of the work, you've talked to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's going to end up on my plate if it comes to DMV. So
And it's 2 years,
2025.
2 years away.
What are you
Okay, we've only
retiring?
got 2 minutes left.
What are you retiring?
I am, that's why I love hearing.
I know. Yeah, now we get the answer.
We've got 2 minutes left. Would we pass over this morning or ready to go with something or?
Well, if we're gonna change it to a report and not a formal committee that has to do the open meeting, everything, then I don't know if we have time to do
I
that.
mean, I wouldn't go yesterday.
So we're about to present the DMV bill. Could this amendment come at third reading, trusting?
I know, Becca said she was gonna withdraw the one that's.
Yes, I won't be offering.
Would you do that? Wait till third reading?
I'm happy to not offer the amendment that's there now and then work with legislative counsel for something for third reading. It
Yeah.
sounds like the changes that the committee is open to is to move it to a report, take out the state rep and state senate position. Was there anything else that I may not have?
There would be positions, it's made, the way I see it as a report by DMV and saying you shall consult with these things and here is the things you look at.
Okay.
I think it's gonna do that.
So the way I am hearing this is you're going to tell the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles in consultation with the Commissioner of Public Safety and the league to look at XYZ. In terms of Senator Kitchell, you saying the language that has those specific decibel meter ratings, Senator White, that's not actually in the bill.
Oh, it's
The
not.
bill has to do with the stickering of motorcycles. Those are the standards for the larger trucks that exist in the Code of Federal Regulations with respect to the labeling of their mufflers. You could take this out and just say, on
Recommend.
ways to ensure that all motor vehicles operated in Hyson, Vermont meet noise standards or do not produce excessive noise, and then strip out the decibel piece. That's a little bit more ambiguous in terms of.
I would want the work committee to recommend what a standard decibel standard should be, not attempt to specify it in advance.
And I would say that in terms of, if you're having them make a recommendation, would it be a recommendation on what is excessive noise? Or would it
Yeah.
be a recommendation on something that should be enforced? Because it almost,
On the standard.
but I mean, then you're presupposing that there should be a standard. And I don't know if you've gotten to a point where you think there should be a standard yet.
I guess that would be the recommendation. Should there be a?
Should there be a standard, then
If
what
there should be a
should it
standard,
be?
what should it be? And should it be enforced through law enforcement or through inspection or both
Okay,
or neither?
we're ready to go.
Thank you very